Welcome back, members of parliament. Before, again, I give the floor to the minister to continue the presentation after conferring and verifying with the SGs. The request for the meeting was sent. The report was booked in, not sent directly to members of parliament, but booked into the general teams and was available online as well through various means. But you can find it under IS 833 in Teams, the general parliament teams. So just for everyone's MP Wescot-Williams, you have a note?
Madam Chair, Lady, thank you. Just a brief question. Has the response or has the report by the Dutch minister to the second chamber on this report, has that also been shared? Yes? Okay, I see Mrs. Weeks confirming. Thank you, Madam Chair, Lady. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, MP Marlin, you had a question?
A clarification, actually. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleague MPs. Good afternoon to the ones listening in the Tribune. And good afternoon to the Honorable Minister and his support staff. Madam Chair, it looks like it's become customary where only certain members of the Parliament get documents, and we've been asking for this document and we haven't seen it anywhere. Can this be shared internally, please?
Thank you, MP Marlin. As I mentioned, it was booked in on June 18th, 2024, members, under IS 833. And I have to note that I myself, as well as other members of parliament, coalition and opposition, received it from within the wider community as a PDF sent to us. So it was available, and on June 18th, it was booked in to the incoming documents of parliament. And one moment, please. If I'm gonna say Henry. Okay. It wasn't directly sent to Parliament as well. They went online as the Secretariat found it and then booked it into Parliament just as well to update the members of the committee on that matter. So it is available. I believe maybe now we can just drop it to the members of the committee at this moment. And I will give the floor then to the minister while that is being done to MP Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you, honorable colleagues, the minister, support staff, and everyone tuned in. Madam Chair, I would like to bring a suggestion that we postpone the meeting until members of parliament get the opportunity to peruse the document, because I too have been looking for the document for the last 2 days at least, and it was told that it was sent. Now to hear, even up to a while ago, I mentioned it, and now to hear that it was not sent. Procedurally, every meeting that is called, the onderliggende stukken, so all the attachments are attached to said convocation, and that's how members of parliament can prepare for the meeting. So I would like to bring this proposal forward so that we can have a fruitful discussion and it not be just a one-sided discussion where we don't have any information to be able to study and ask questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Duran. I will adjourn for 2 minutes to discuss your proposal. Meeting adjourned for 2 minutes. Come back, members. I will now give the floor, I've decided after conferring with Secretariat that we will be continuing with the meeting due to the fact that the document itself, the TNO report, was received only by Secretariat, finding it on the Tweede Kamer, so the second chamber's website, which because this document was not commissioned by the government of Sint Maarten, it was an initiative by the government of the Netherlands in consultation with the government of Sint Maarten. Therefore, members have had access to it via various means. Secretariat has provided it once again to members of parliament. And so we will allow the minister to make his presentation while members peruse the report and ask questions based on the presentation and said report. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of Parliament, listeners in the Tribune, online viewers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me first thank the Chair for the invitation to address Parliament for the first time as Minister of ROMI, remembering that this meeting was originally convened for last week and was postponed due to the continuation of a very urgent meeting of Parliament. This afternoon, a meeting of ROMI Committee of Parliament has been convened on the subject of the TNO report. Through you, Madam Chair, I wish to inform Parliament that the TNO report speaks of energy transition within the countries of Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten. Within government, energy policy, and by extension, energy transition, falls under the Ministry of TEAT. ROMI, in its role as the ministry in charge of infrastructure, is then responsible for ensuring adequate distribution. As such, my presentation today focuses largely on giving context to the report and therefore draws on my experiences from my previous position as Director of Foreign Relations, wherein I advised on a strategy for financing the energy transition. In addition, the long-term vision aligns with and supports initiatives being undertaken by the Policy Department of ROMI. Finally, and most naturally, consultations was done with the Ministry and Minister of TEAT. What is TNO? De Nederlandse organisatie wordt toegepast natuurwetenschappelijke onderzoek, or the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, in short, in Dutch, TNO, is an independent research organization in the Netherlands. Established in 1932, TNO conducts contract research, offers specialist consulting services, and grants licenses for patents and specialized software. TNO works in 6 key areas: construction, energy, healthcare, industry, logistics, and maritime and offshore. Why were they contracted? TNO was contracted by the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate, AZK, to assess the feasibility of energy transition in the Caribbean countries of the Kingdom, i.e., Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten. This research was commissioned to build upon the agreement called the Kingdom of the Netherlands Climate Agenda, Pathway Towards Climate Resilient and Sustainable Islands, signed by the Minister of AZK and the Prime Ministers of the 3 countries in 2024. The reasoning behind signing this document is the belief that aligning the priorities of the islands, the climate agenda could enhance the cooperation in the kingdom concerning climate change and sustainable energy. The aim of this cooperation is to accelerate the transition to resilient and sustainable futures for the 6 islands, considering their limited capacities and resources necessary to face climate change. By improving access to resources, sharing knowledge and best practices, existing and new initiatives on the islands to improve climate resilience can be advanced, thereby contributing to the overall environment in the Caribbean region. The report was envisioned to form the basis for discussions around financing the energy transition by creating a baseline on which to build. How did we come to this Kingdom agenda? The Kingdom Climate Agenda was the direct result of the lobbying done by the governments of 3 countries at various events, but most notably on the floor of the United Nations. Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten were consistent in their messaging regarding climate change and the lack of structural funding to combat the impact of climate change. This was also discussed within the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Affairs, as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Strategy for Energy Transition Financing. The Department of Foreign Relations, DBB, having taken note of discussions within the kingdom regarding debt forgiveness, advised the then Prime Minister to align discussions around debt forgiveness to what was being practiced internationally. Globally, independent developing countries are being offered concessionary financing, so in short, low interest rates or more beneficial mechanisms, based on factors such as their vulnerability, i.e. size, economy, and exposure to natural disasters. Though we are within the kingdom, the position was that our Sint Maarten reality was far more in line with our Caribbean neighbors than that of the Netherlands, and as such, a review of existing debt and/or access to financing to help with our transition to renewable energy should be considered. This was taken up and formed the basis of the country's interventions internationally over the past 5 years. A direct result of this lobby work is that the countries are now eligible for the Sustainable Energy Production and Climate Transition Incentive, easily called SDA++, and the National Growth Fund, CRUI funds. SDA++ provides subsidies to companies and non-profit organizations that generate large-scale renewable energy or reduce CO2 emissions, while the National Growth Fund is a monetary allocation of the Dutch government for project investments in 2 fields which have the highest potential for structural and durable economic growth. These 2 fields are, 1, knowledge development and research, and development and innovation. Within government of Sint Maarten, an Energy and Climate Committee was created comprising of civil servants from Ministry AZ, TEAT, and VROMI. Together, this committee is charged with developing the strategy towards transition. As earlier stated, the objective of the TNO report was to form the basis for discussions around energy transition projects and their funding. As Minister Plenipotentiary in my former job just last week, I held discussions on the way forward with relevant ministries in The Hague, and the most critical step needed now is a comprehensive government plan towards renewable energy that leads to the development of project proposals. To that end, I've already engaged with the Minister of TEAT to prioritize the updating of the energy policy. I am glad to state that this has her attention as well as that of her ministry. Challenges. Some of the challenges encountered over the past couple of years, and in particular with finalizing the TNO report, are the following. Lack of coordinated approach to energy transition, competing and/or contradictory agreements being signed by government, and lack of critical information from GEBE. These challenges contributed to the significant lack of data on Sint Maarten in the TNO report. The basis for their conclusion that decentralized solar energy is the best option for Sint Maarten is derived from reports and interviews with relevant stakeholders where possible, as well as regional comparisons. Important to note is that our own energy policy of 2014 calls for 2% renewable energy against the concession agreement of GEBE. This is currently not being observed and is far below regional benchmarks for renewable energy. Ministry of VROMI. Upon taking office as Minister of VROMI, my goal has been to ensure improved interministerial cooperation between and with AZ and TEAT on energy transition. In speaking with the Policy Department, I have had the discussions about how VROMI can support sustainable and equitable development. VROMI is busy finalizing the implementation of the building code and a zoning plan. Within this zoning plan, We could, for example, outline technical regulations for use of solar panels. Finally, taking this a bit further, as it relates to the permits and spatial planning side of the ministry, VROMI can in future require large developments to have a percentage of their energy needs come from renewable sources. In that way, we align across government, align in line with the National Development Vision and the Sustainable Development Goals. Madam Chair, here comes the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gomes. To which member of parliament can I give the floor for questions? MP Wescot-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chairlady, and I thank the Minister for his introductory remarks on the topic and would like to know if the Minister has any update or recent information regarding the state of the funding programs of the Dutch government, and especially those geared towards matters such as energy transition, climate change, I mean, you name it. The reason for this question is that there were reports not too long ago that especially the 200 million euros, I guess it was, funding program that was available, that the Dutch government was considering cutting it. That was being circulated out there. That's one. So is there any update on the funding modalities that we were kind of looking at? The last information that I got regarding an energy policy for Sint Maarten has been that the 2014 one was being updated. Is that a fact? And how far are we with updating the energy policy? Overall, given where we stand right now with the matter of electricity supply and the government-owned company GEBE, where does the government and the Ministry of VROMI stand with respect to a plan for alternative energy, etc.? That's, where do we stand? Are we working on a plan? Are we going to take some information from this plan, other plans, etc.? And then there is this ongoing discussion about net metering. What does it really call for in order to make that possible? There's constant reference to changes in the legislation that need to happen. Is it indeed so that we need to change legislation, change concession? What exactly is the basis of this? Does the minister have any information, again, from our electricity company, who at one time was planning and had the plans drawn up for a solar park here in town, that GEBE would have done that? Was it only a matter of money that those plans were either shelved or maybe discarded? Is my next question. Madam Chair, Lady, if those matters can be addressed, then then I can continue with any additional questions that I might have. Thank you, Madam Chair, Lady.
Thank you, MP Wescot-Williams. Minister, I don't see anyone else. Sorry, MP Jacobs, but I just want to ask a question. Would you like to get all questions first, and then you can begin answering? Okay. MP Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you, the griffier, my colleagues here in Parliament in this committee meeting, as well as the Minister of VROMI and his support staff. Good afternoon to those following this meeting as well. Good afternoon to the people of Sint Maarten. I just wanted some clarity. I think I heard the minister say that the climate agreement of the kingdom was signed this year. Wasn't that signed? What climate agreement was signed in 23 then? Just wanted clarity as to, is it the same or in the same vein of what was signed in 23? I take note of all the lobbying that you mentioned at both United Nations as well as within the kingdom that has led to the access to the funding. And I'm happy to hear that there is further collaboration between VROMI, TEAT, and AZ in terms of the Energy and Climate Committee. the TNO plan, how does that compare to the NVGEBE strategic plan? Because you mentioned quite vaguely something about challenges being lack of coordination of data, competing agreements. Is this considered, since we didn't commission this study, how is St. Maarten looking at all of the options on the table? The lack of cooperation, that was indeed the challenge with GB a couple of years ago, to have their input on the, let's say, the research that was taking place at that time, and this report now. So how do these things relate in terms of the way forward? Because I'm listening to the presentation and having some more information than I think the general population, I don't think that came across clearly in terms of what exactly, or putting those reports and or agreements, comparing them. How is the ministry dealing with NVGB? Because at the end of the day, NVGB is the executor. We've had intentions for many, many years, as you mentioned, since 2014 for the transition. And out of what government was able to get from their research in the roadmap, solar was also seen as the first phase of the transition. So how are these different reports and or agreements being utilized by the Ministry of VROMI and, more importantly, NVGB? Because clearly we can't force anything down GB's throat. How are we going to ensure the execution thereof moving forward? That's all for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Jacobs. Next, I have MP Emmanuel. MP Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good afternoon to the Honourable Minister and his support staff and my colleagues and everyone listening, by which means, just for clarity's sake, Madam Chair Lady, I have a question to the Honourable Minister, because he made mention that this report was not commissioned by St. Maarten. However, the governments, I believe he said, or everyone is familiar with this report. So I would like to know by the Minister saying that, are you saying that governments before, or when exactly was this report brought forward? What time, what date, what year was this report brought forward? Because I believe we had a little mix-up earlier with individuals saying they haven't received the report. So I would like to know if any ministers of the former government is familiar with this report, or have they received this report, or this is just a new report that just came about. I thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. MP Wescot-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. Just let me add a few small questions to the questions already posed. And there has been information provided to Parliament was that the grid market company has drafted, has presented, I'm not sure what exactly, a roadmap. Can that roadmap be shared? And is it in the direction of, or does it include the matter of alternative energy plans and or proposals? The same question, although from what I've read, and please correct me if that is not the case, Minister, the Energy Nautics report / study is supposed to be available in September. Does the Minister know? Does the Minister know of the commissioning of this report, and does it include alternative energy / energy transition as a point as well? And then can the Minister indicate this entire matter of, one, agreements with developers regarding the use of their use of electricity? The Minister would recall there was an issue of does VROMI inform the developers? Should they inform the developers? Do they ask for information? Is it included in the building permit? Can it be included? Those type of questions regarding agreements with developers, if the Minister can address those. And then lately we have understood and read that agreements are being made with big businesses or big business during this entire load shedding period. Is there a formal understanding as to government/GB's approach to this, or is it just a gentleman's agreement? Well, you know, you come off the grid during X time. So what is that understanding exactly? If the minister has any insight to provide in that. Madam Chair, Lady, I thank you.
Thank you, MP Wescott, for your questions, and I now give the floor to MP Irion. MP Irion, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Minister Patrice Gomes. I'd like to ask a question regarding your capacity as VROMI, but also Deputy Prime Minister. Did the government formally request any, based on any support from the Netherlands regarding the GB saga, so support financially or any capacity from the Netherlands officially? Second, is this support in any way at risk? Is this support in any way at risk? And what would those reasons be? So what, if it is at risk, what is the reason that it is at risk? So one, did the government request support, financial support for the GB saga? Two, is the request in any way at risk, and why is it at risk? That'd be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. I do not see any other. Okay. Sorry. MP Brug, you have the floor.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Minister. Congratulations as well with your appointment, your recent appointment. I just have one clarification. In the report on table 5.1, there are indication of investment costs, and these costs are attached to Curaçao and Aruba. However, unfortunately, when it comes to Sint Maarten, there is no information in the report stated. Is there a particular reason for that? If you can just clarify that one question for me.
Thank you, MP Brug. Now I see no other members signed in to speak, so I will adjourn for 2 minutes to caucus with the minister to see how much time he would need to answer the questions. Meeting adjourned for 2 minutes. Welcome back, members of the Committee of VROMI. After conferring with the minister, he has requested a half an hour to come back with the answers to the questions. So I will adjourn to make it even to 2:45 p.m. So meeting adjourned until 2:45 p.m.